In January 2020, scientists at the British Antarctic Survey recorded something that made them check their instruments 3 times: the sound of running water beneath the Thwaites Glacier, where no liquid water should exist. Not a trickle, a river flowing at an estimated rate of 600 cubic meters per second, carving channels through bedrock that's been buried under ice for 34 million years. Within weeks, satellite radar confirmed what the acoustic sensors detected: massive subglacial drainage systems activating across West Antarctica, networks of meltwater rivers larger than the Thames, all awakening simultaneously as temperatures rise. The continent isn't just melting, it's draining from within. Right now, Antarctica is warming at a rate that has stunned even the scientists who predicted climate disaster. The Thwaites Glacier, what glaciologists grimly call the Doomsday Glacier, is losing 14 billion tons of ice per year, a rate that has tripled since the 1990s. Dr. Ted Scambos of the University of Colorado Boulder stated in 2023 that we're witnessing a collapse that appears irreversible with current climate trajectories. The Larsen Sea ice shelf calved an iceberg the size of Delaware in July 2017, and satellite imagery shows the remaining shelf fracturing along stress lines that suggest complete disintegration within 2 decades. We're not just watching ice melt, we're watching a seal break on something that's been locked away since before humans existed. What terrifies climate scientists now isn't just the rising seas, it's what the retreat reveals. In December 2012, a Russian team drilling through the ice above Lake Vostok, a body of liquid water the size of Lake Ontario, sealed beneath 2.5 miles of ice for 15 million years, finally pierced the frozen ceiling after 20 years of drilling. The first water samples pulled up in January 2013 contained DNA from over 3,500 organisms, including bacteria that matched nothing in existing genetic databases. They were metabolizing in complete darkness, in sub-zero temperatures, feeding on minerals in ways that defied established biochemistry. Then came Lake Mercer. In January 2019, the SALSA project, Subglacial Antarctic Lakes Scientific Access, drilled through 1/2 mile of ice and pulled up sediment cores from a lake that had been isolated for over 100,000 years. The samples teemed with life: ancient bacteria, tardigrades, and genetic material from organisms science had never cataloged. But it was the diversity that shocked researchers. Over 10,000 distinct DNA sequences in a single cubic centimeter of sediment, suggesting entire ecosystems have evolved in absolute isolation beneath the ice. And Lake Vostok is just one of 400 known subglacial lakes. We've sampled 2. Radar imaging has mapped ancient river valleys carved when Antarctica was green, fossilized pollen from southern beech trees, preserved root systems from 90 million years ago when the continent hosted temperate rainforests. Antarctica has been ice-free before. It remembers being warm. And as the ice sheet retreats at accelerating speed, it's starting to exhale secrets that have been buried since the age of dinosaurs. The question scientists whisper isn't whether Antarctica is hiding something extraordinary, it's whether we're remotely prepared for what happens when a frozen time capsule, sealed for millions of years, finally cracks open. In 2008, scientists using ice-penetrating radar discovered something that violates everything we know about mountain formation: the Gamburtsev's Mountains, an entire range the size of the European Alps, buried beneath the East Antarctic ice sheet under ice so thick that its highest peaks still lie 3,000 feet below the surface. These mountains rise over 9,000 feet from the bedrock floor, yet they sit in the dead center of the Antarctic continent, 1,000 miles from the nearest tectonic plate boundary. Every mountain range on Earth forms from either colliding plates or volcanic activity. The Gamburtsevs have neither. Dr. Fausto Ferriccioli, the lead geophysicist who mapped them, stated they represent one of Earth's last great mysteries, mountains that by all geological rules should not exist. Dating suggests they're over 500 million years old, yet they show erosion patterns indicating they were somehow uplifted, rejuvenated by unknown forces roughly 100 million years ago. It's as if something beneath Antarctica's crust pushed them up long after they should have eroded flat. No tectonic model explains it. But impossible mountains are just the beginning. In 2006, NASA's Reis satellites detected a gravitational anomaly beneath Wilkes Land in East Antarctica that literally bends space. The Wilkes Land mass con, a mass concentration spanning over 200 miles, creates such a dense gravitational field that it pulls on passing satellites measurably more than surrounding regions. Dr. Ralph von Fries from Ohio State University, who led the discovery team, identified it as likely the impact crater from an asteroid strike during the Permian-Triassic extinction event 250 million years ago, the catastrophe that killed 96% of marine species and 70% of terrestrial vertebrates on Earth. The impactor is estimated at 30 miles in diameter. Its mass is still there, embedded miles deep in the Antarctic crust, like a frozen bullet. But here's what keeps geophysicists returning to the data. The gravitational readings show density variations that don't match standard impact crater models. Something about the mass distribution is irregular, asymmetric in ways that suggest either an unusually iron-rich impactor or geological processes we don't understand, altering the crater structure over millions of years. Then there's what lies beneath the Ross Ice Shelf. In 2015, oceanographers from the University of Washington deployed autonomous underwater vehicles beneath the ice and discovered something no one predicted: a thriving ecosystem in complete darkness. Anemones, fish, amphipods, complex life clinging to the underside of the ice shelf in water that never sees sunlight, feeding on nutrients drawn from deep ocean currents. One specimen, a translucent fish later classified as Cryodracus antarcticus, had adapted antifreeze proteins in its blood so efficient that it survives in temperatures that would crystallize the blood of any other vertebrate on Earth. The ice is up to 3 miles thick in places. Radar penetrates only so deep, and every new survey, every drilling project, every ice-penetrating analysis reveals something that rewrites our assumptions. The question now isn't whether Antarctica holds secrets, it's how many layers of impossible geology and impossible life remain buried beneath ice we're only beginning to see through. In 1929, a German scholar discovered something in Istanbul's Topkapi Palace Library that shouldn't exist. The Piri Reis map, dated 1513 and signed by Ottoman Admiral Piri Reis, depicting the coastline of Antarctica with disturbing accuracy, 307 years before the continent was officially discovered by Russian explorers Fabian Gottlieb von Bellingshausen and Mikhail Lazarev in 1820. The map doesn't just show Antarctica exists, it shows the northern coast of Queen Maud Land as it appears beneath the ice, bays, inlets, and coastal features that weren't confirmed until Norwegian, British, Swedish expeditions used seismic surveys to map the subglacial coastline in 1952. Piri Reis wrote directly on the map itself that he compiled it from over 20 source charts, including maps from the time of Alexander the Great and charts used by ancient mariners, some dating to the 4th century BC or earlier, obtained after the Ottoman conquest of Constantinople. When the U.S. Air Force analyzed the map in 1960, their cartographic evaluation concluded the level of coastal detail suggests the shoreline was mapped at a time when it was ice-free. but Antarctica has been ice-covered for at least 34 million years. The Orontius Phineus world map of 1531 deepens the mystery. It depicts the entire Antarctic continent, not just a coastline, but interior features, mountain ranges, rivers, and bays positioned with longitudinal accuracy that required chronometers not invented until 1761. When Dr. Charles Hapgood of Keene State College compared the Phineus map to modern ice-penetrating radar data in the 1960s, he found the inland mountains matched the position of ranges we didn't confirm existed until satellite radar mapping in the 1990s. Hapgood spent 30 years analyzing these maps. His controversial conclusion, published in Maps of the Ancient Sea Kings in 1966, they represent copies of far older source maps created by an unknown maritime civilization with advanced cartographic knowledge before Antarctica was covered in ice. Mainstream geology rejected this. Antarctica's ice sheet formed in the Eocene epoch, 34 million years before humans evolved. Yet the maps remain, and those annotations visible on the original Piri Reis map in Topkapi Palace raise a haunting question. What ancient civilization possessed the maritime capability and cartographic knowledge to map Antarctica thousands of years before modern discovery? Skeptics argue the maps show South America's coast distorted by cartographic errors, but the longitudinal coordinates are too accurate, the mountain positions too precise, and there's one detail no skeptic has explained. The Piri Reis map shows the coastline of Queen Maud Land extending further north than it does today, exactly as it would have appeared if sea levels were lower and ice coverage was less, conditions that last existed during the last glacial maximum 12,000 years ago. Either multiple Renaissance cartographers coincidentally created fantastically accurate forgeries of a continent they didn't know existed, or someone, somehow, mapped Antarctica long before modern civilization, and that knowledge was passed down through source maps for thousands of years until Piri Reis copied it onto gazelle skin in 1513. No mainstream theory adequately explains it. In August 1946, less than 1 year after World War II ended, the United States military launched the largest Antarctic expedition in history, and to this day, the full reason remains classified. Operation Highjump deployed 4,700 personnel, 13 ships including the aircraft carrier USS Philippine Sea, 6 helicopters, 6 flying boats, 2 seaplane tenders, and 15 other aircraft under the command of Rear Admiral Richard E. Byrd, America's most celebrated polar explorer. The official mission? Establish Antarctic research bases and test cold weather equipment. The allocated time frame? 6 to 8 months of operations. The mission was terminated abruptly after just 8 weeks. What happened in those 8 weeks remains one of the most heavily classified operations of the post-war era. We know from declassified records that Operation Highjump lost personnel and equipment. On December 30, 1946, a PBM Mariner flying boat, George 1, vanished with 9 crew members during a reconnaissance flight over the Antarctic interior. The official report stated, "crashed during a blizzard," but meteorological logs from USS Pine Island, the seaplane tender supporting the mission, show clear weather conditions that day. The aircraft and crew were never recovered. When Admiral Byrd returned to the United States in March 1947, he was immediately summoned to Washington for classified debriefings. The mission's official report, submitted to the Navy, was classified and remains partially sealed 79 years later. Byrd never gave detailed public interviews about Operation Highjump's findings. When pressed by journalists, he offered only vague statements about valuable Antarctic research. His personal journals from the expedition were sealed by his family and have never been published. The expedition had also been tasked with extensive aerial photography of Neuschwabenland, the region of Queen Maud Land claimed by Nazi Germany in a 1938 to 1939 expedition. Germany's Antarctic expedition, led by Captain Alfred Rickert, had mapped over 230,000 square miles and dropped thousands of aluminum poles engraved with swastikas to mark territorial claims. German U-boat activity in South Atlantic waters continued for months after Germany's official surrender, with U-977 and U-530 both surrendering in Argentina in July and August 1945, respectively. Their captains claimed they had spent months hiding in remote South Atlantic locations. Neither submarine's War Patrol logs have been fully declassified. In 1959, just 12 years after Operation Highjump, the Antarctic Treaty was signed by 12 nations, including the United States and Soviet Union, bitter Cold War enemies who couldn't agree on anything. The treaty demilitarized the entire continent, prohibiting military bases, weapons testing, and territorial expansion. It remains the most universally respected international agreement in modern history, with 54 signatory nations and not a single documented violation in 66 years. The question no one has satisfactorily answered: what motivated such unprecedented cooperation to seal an entire continent from military presence during the height of global military competition? What did Operation Highjump discover that was significant enough to trigger an international treaty that has survived every conflict since? Portions of Operation Highjump's mission reports were declassified in the 1990s under Freedom of Information Act requests. The majority remain classified for national security reasons. It has now been 79 years. Admiral Byrd's personal journals stay sealed. The files stay classified, and the questions remain unanswered. We stand at a threshold humanity has never faced before. The ice that has preserved Antarctica's secrets for 34 million years is vanishing at an accelerating rate that even pessimistic climate models failed to predict. In 2024, satellite data from NASA and the European Space Agency confirmed what glaciologists had feared. The collapse of West Antarctica's major glaciers has crossed irreversible tipping points. Even if all carbon emissions stopped today, the Thwaites and Pine Island glaciers will continue their disintegration. Within 50 years, possibly sooner, vast regions of Antarctic bedrock will be exposed to open air for the first time since the Pliocene epoch 3 million years ago. What will we find when the ice finally retreats? The scientific community prepares for biological discoveries that could redefine our understanding of life itself. 400 subglacial lakes lie beneath the ice. We've sampled 2. Each one could harbor ecosystems that evolved in complete isolation, offering blueprints for how life adapts to conditions we thought impossible. This knowledge could guide our search for life on Europa, Enceladus, and other ice-covered worlds. But there's danger too. Ancient viruses and bacteria frozen for millions of years will thaw and reawaken. In 2014, French scientists successfully revived a 40,000-year-old virus from Siberian permafrost. It remained infectious. Antarctica's ice is exponentially older, and we have no immunity to pathogens from the Pliocene. The geological revelations will be equally profound. The Gomburtsev Mountains will finally become accessible for direct study, potentially solving the mystery of their impossible existence. The Wilkes Land impact crater, the grave of the Permian extinction, could be excavated, offering unprecedented insight into the catastrophe that nearly ended life on Earth. Ancient river valleys, fossil forests, and sediment layers will tell us how Antarctica transitioned from green continent to frozen wasteland. And then there are the questions that no peer-reviewed journal will touch, but which grow harder to dismiss as more ice disappears. If the Piri Reis map truly depicts Antarctica's ice-free coastline, copied from source maps thousands of years old, who created those original charts? Why did Operation Highjump's classified records remain sealed for nearly 8 decades? What did Admiral Byrd's expedition encounter that was significant enough to help trigger an international treaty that has survived every conflict since? The Antarctic Treaty comes up for comprehensive review in 2048. As ice-free land increases in value and accessibility, territorial claims frozen since 1961 may resurface. 7 nations maintain territorial assertions. The United States and Russia have reserved the right to make claims. China has expanded its Antarctic infrastructure dramatically since 2010, now operating 5 permanent research stations. As resources become accessible and strategic importance grows, the question becomes, will cooperation hold, or will Antarctica ignite the next great geopolitical conflict? The ice is melting. The timeline is set. Within our lifetimes, we will know what lies beneath: ancient life, impossible geology, and perhaps answers to mysteries we've debated for centuries. The secrets are rising whether we're ready or not, and there's no stopping the thaw. If these mysteries have left you questioning everything you thought you knew about our planet, subscribe to Dark Dimensions X and hit the bell icon, because the world is full of secrets waiting to be uncovered, and we're just getting started.